That there is a ton of stuff in you that needs to change and adapt so you can be ready to start to inhabit heaven, which is a totally different atmosphere and place and space than what you've been used to.
You are not in a state of fear. You're in this peace.
So the second phase of the dying process is when you start to meet beings on the other side.
So you don't just get sort of sucked into the void.
You don't. At this point, it's all been between you and the divine pull of God's mercy. But now you start to meet people or meet something, and they have this important and very technical role in what happens to you next.
So probably a welcome, probably involves a wreath of some kind. Or something.
So the first, you get to hang out with the very highest or deepest, as Swedenborg would say, angels in heaven. This is in Heaven and Hell 449. At first then, a connection was established between my heartbeat, which at this point is the heartbeat of his spirit, because his body,
that's right,
he's out of there, and the heavenly kingdom, because that kingdom corresponds to the human heart. I also saw angels from that kingdom, some at a distance, but two sitting close to my head. The effect was to take away all my own affection, but to leave me in possession of thought and perception.
So all his own sort of, it sounds like his own kind of normal emotional state was overridden.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting that they have the capability to do that.
Yeah.
They can shut off your I know you do your normal emotional thing where this time of day you feel hopeful that this and that, and the other time of day you feel depressed because of what. We're not doing that right now. Shut off your normal emotions. And also the two angels, isn't there two angels when Jesus is resurrected? Wasn't there, at least in one of the Gospels, there's one at the foot and one at the head or something like that. Yeah, that's cool.
So he uses a few terms here that if you're not familiar with Swedenborg, might fly past you. Which one, he says, the heavenly kingdom.
Yes.
And you might just think, he's just talking about heaven.
That's
heaven. It's heaven. But actually, there's two parts to heaven. At the beginning of the episode, we were saying that when you're dying, the big split between your spirit and your body comes with the split with the lungs and the split with the heart.
Yes.
It's because there's these two major components of reality, which is love and wisdom. Those two are the things that emanate out from God. And so heaven, which is the sort of the first reception of God's nature, has what he calls the heavenly kingdom and the spiritual kingdom. And if I was to summarize it, the heavenly kingdom are angels who are people who have died and are in the afterlife who are like heart-centered. They're love-centered.
Yeah.
And then the spiritual kingdom is people who are mind-centered.
Yeah.
Who are concepts and thought-centered. So for Swedenborg, in this first phase, these are the love people that are close to him here.
And it's amazing to think about this giant heaven, with all these. He says that a fair number of the people who populate the heavenly kingdom are little children who died as children, and especially back in the day when there was so much infant mortality, there was a huge number. There's tons and tons of angels all being hooked up to just your heartbeat. And so the greeting is not one of, who are you? What are you doing? It's not like you encounter the guard or something.
Yeah.
Right? Show me some ID. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
No, it's absolute love. The highest kind of love is what greets you. And I don't think this was just for Swedenborg. I think the whole point of this story was that this is what everybody gets. This is the reception that everybody gets.
For sure. And if you were just going to make this up, if you were just going to say, I'm going to tell people that I died and went to heaven, and I'm going to tell people what it's like so that I can sell a book or something.
Yeah, right.
What you would not put in there is that the angels of the heavenly kingdom took away all my feelings but left me with my thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre,
it's an odd
technical
little detail.
But
what?
You're going to see, this is really important. It's functionally, it's kind of like a clean room. It's like you normally have your shoes. If you come in here, you have to put these little booties over your shoes because you can't be tracking contaminants into here.
That's right.
Because
we're creating computer chips, or we're doing something that you can't have a piece of dust in here.
In this case, we're resuscitating you into eternal life. There's a reason why that part of you needs to go dormant.
And I love that somebody has control over that.
Yeah.
Because most of the time we're doing our thing and having our experiences, and that somebody's able to just, let me take that for you.
Well, I think about it. Yeah, it's like I was just thinking of, if a baby's born in the hospital, it's like, okay, there's always doctors and nurses around, and the room is a certain temperature and all. Like, it's all this environment is ready. It's kind of like on the other side, you got this team that's like, all right, you're coming in. We're gonna make sure everything's good for you there.
Yeah.
So now we switch into the other story, the Secrets of Heaven version, and where he's describing the same part of that. He says, heavenly angels were present, occupying the area of my heart, so that I seemed to be at one with them in my heart. We were so close that at last hardly anything of my own remained to me besides the thought and perception that comes with thought. This lasted several hours.
Several hours? Wow. Okay, so for several hours he's just, he's kind of in this deep meditative sounding state of just love where he's one with these highest angels. What a nice way to start your afterlife.
When I read that, I was like, I want to do that. As they would say in 30 Rock, I want to go to there.
Yes, right.
Think about all the weariness you carry in your bones from life.
Oh.
Whoever and wherever you are, they're just this thing that we're going through, which at times is great and at times is not. I want to sit there and have these, I want to be at one with them in my heart and just like, give me a couple hours.
Oh.
Give me a couple hours here. And
just the peace and the
but it's not just, that might be nice. I think it's like an acclimation process.
Yeah.
So if you're scuba diving and you say, I just want to go to the surface, you got to stop here.
Yep.
At 35 feet or something for a certain amount of time.
Don't go too fast.
Or if you're like, I want to climb Mount Everest, it's like you have to stay at base camp for a couple of days to get acclimated to the oxygen. There is something, I'm sure, happening within his spirit. Because remember, the Swedenborg spirit, like any of our spirits, is as complicated as the body. So just like with the body, the reason you got to stop, part way up when you're scuba diving is that nitrogen, needs to work its way out of your blood or into your blood or whatever it needs. There's a million tiny little chemical things happening in there. So it is here, I'm sure, that there is a ton of stuff that in you that needs to change and adapt so you can be ready to start to inhabit heaven, which is a totally different atmosphere and place and space than what you've been used to.
And it's kind of like the near-death experience people describe, because in this world, in this fleshly world, every day on the news you hear about people who are just dying in random ways. I just heard this morning about a firefighter. There's a lot of fires breaking out, and the tree just fell on this young guy and killed him. Well, it's just absolutely random, and it's kind of terrifying to be alive, because you don't know at what moment am I going to, you're going down the highway or whatever it is, and you don't know when this is coming. And the thought that, oh no, there's a whole team that knows you're coming and gets hooked up with you. And we've got you.
Yeah.
We've got you. We've got the most important part of you.
Yep.
We've got your love right here.
And we're going to make sure that you make it through here safe and happy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so you're in a state of peace.
Oh yeah.
I think he describes it in what you're about to read. But yeah, you are not in a state of fear. You're not in your own, whatever reaction you might have been having to the events that led up. Did you hear the tree falling down or whatever it is? You're terrified or something. But then, you're in this peace.
If there's any message that we get from everybody who's had the experience of dying and then coming back to talk about it, I think the take-home message is that life is not nearly as bad as it seems like it is.
Yes.
Life seems worse than it is.
Yes.
Because all these people, they are in the worst situations. They're in horrific car accidents.
Terrible.
Mary Neal was like pinned underwater in a kayak.
Yeah. Drowning under the water. Some people are shot. Some people are struck by lightning. Yeah. All these things.
And to us as an observer, you think like this horrible world that somebody would go through that. But the actual person who's in there, who's right there in that body that you see going through those horrible things, they say, I didn't hurt at all. I wasn't even in there when that happened. Instead, I felt surrounded by, I was aware of it. I remember Mary Neal in her account saying, she could tell her legs were breaking, but it didn't hurt. And she was surrounded by love, and she was flying out of that and free. So it's like, wait a second. You look around at the state of the world and you say, how can there be a God when all this horrible stuff is happening all the time? But if the thing that we point at is that's the worst thing that can happen, is someone dying in a violent way, if actually the person in there is fine, life is not nearly as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, that's right. And death is not as bad as you think.
In addition to the heavenly angels occupying the region of my heart, there were 2 angels sitting at my head. I perceive that this is so for everyone, like you were just saying.
Okay. Yep.
And then he goes on, all the while I remained at one with the heavenly angels, held in a fairly close embrace in the area around my heart, as I perceived and also felt in my pulse.
Interesting. And your heart is not, I mean, you can feel somebody hold you around the waist or grab your arm or around your neck or something like that. Your heart is usually not something that somebody else actually holds.
Like, get out of there.
Right.
Maybe one heart surgeon,
Yeah, right.
for like a minute. Yeah.
Right. But this is a beautiful feeling that he's describing, where he's quite closely. What does he say? Something like that. It's like
held in a fairly close embrace in the area around my heart.
Yeah, and so there's room where it's not squeezing. It's not constraining your heart, but it's still. We've got you. We're right here. It's all good.
And so far, it paints this incredible picture of a comforting and loving welcome, which is like great. Everybody deserves that after the trials of life and everything.
And this is not just like the nice people are saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is everybody.
Yeah.
This is everybody. This is how everybody's welcome.
Yeah. Everybody gets this welcome. But it's not just like a love fest. There's important technical protective work happening here. The angels that are with you after you die are protecting you as you cross over from any kind of influence of evil or evil spirits. So this is back to heaven and hell. Swedenborg writes this, then the spirits who were around me gradually drew away, thinking that I was dead. It's not the angels he's talking about, but the spirits. Angel is somebody who's died, who's gone up into heaven, done the process of self-reflection and repentance. You go up to heaven. Spirits are people who are still not sorted, have not sorted themselves into heaven or hell yet. So you have spirits around you all the time. That's part of why your mind is like it is. Those regular kind of, your sort of secular, normal life, those spirits thought, oh, Swedenborg is dead. I'm leaving him. That's part of what was accomplished in these couple hours where he's being held by the angels. It's like if you're in a really vulnerable point in your life, you're not going to just like turn on the news or something. It's like this is much more, this is core. This is.
And there's a fundamental shift that's going on, because you've got angels, then you've got spirits who are close to your mind, and then there's you in this world. Now you're transitioning to the other world, so you're becoming a spirit. So the whole game is changing.
Yes.
And so those spirits and they must know the rules, or they get bored, or whatever happens. But it's like, seems like he died, and they split.
That's true. According to Swedenborg, the way that you have consciousness is you have spirits around you that sort of act as channels-ish for this whole spiritual world. But once you're a spirit, you don't need that anymore. So you have to shift all your connections. You've leveled up, so you no longer need those things, those teachers.
And I'm thinking of the analogy. I don't know how it fits, but
no, we don't got to worry about that. Let's just analogize and see what happens.
9 months in the womb, then your situation changes radically the day you're born. You're born. You used to be in one state. Well, is our entire life in this world like the womb? Then we're born, and our situation changes when it's this major transition. So there was a sort of steady state of like, okay, there's all this growth going on, but you're still in the womb. Oh, now everything's changing. All the rules are changing, and you're shifting. So now you're a child with these other children and all that going on. So when you cross over, the spirits are like, oh, well, no, they're not in that state anymore. He crossed over, and so they leave. It's interesting.
Well, if your kid's up at the bus stop, you don't run up and be like, hey, wait, you forgot the placenta.
Yes, right.
Where are you going with that? It's things that you very much needed and couldn't survive without for 9 months. suddenly you don't need them anymore.
Now it's gone. Yeah. Different. It's a transition. But a very carefully, beautifully managed transition. That's what's nice. Not random. This is not random.
So the spirits go away thinking that Swedenborg is dead. Then he says, I sensed a sweet odor like that of an embalmed body. For when heavenly angels are present, anything having to do with a corpse smells sweet. When spirits sense this, they cannot come near. This is also how evil spirits are kept away from our spirit when we are being admitted into eternal life.
So strange. But this sweet smell, because it's not the smell of decay or death or something. It's some sweet smell, and yet interesting that the evil spirits can't. You'd think they'd like a nice smell, but they hate it. They don't want to be near that. And so this is a natural protection of just like. And again, doesn't it seem like these higher angels have amazing control of like, I can create a pleasant odor.
Yeah.
And that'll take care of these evil spirits here or whatever. They have amazing control over the process.
But still have to do things through means. Like they have to take these steps in order to keep you safe.
Right.
I think the analogy or the correspondence of, let's say, an operating room holds up, because if you're going to get an operation done on you, there's all these steps taken to make sure at this point there's got to be no germs that get in here.
That's right.
That we're going to have antiseptic around the womb. People are going to be wearing face masks, hair nets, because sure, there's always germs around, and you never really like having them around. But right now, there's got to be none. There's got to be none of those things.
And you just walked in from your car or the barn where you keep horses or whatever, and so you came in from whatever environment.
Yeah.
But we have to purify this. So when you're making your entrance into the operating theater, there's steps that we take. And so they'll put iodine or whatever, that's disinfectant.
So there's evil spirits in the spiritual world that are around, and Swedenborg just says those are people that are mean who then went to the afterlife, and because of what they love, they still are mean. Yeah. That's what an evil spirit is. And you can't have those people around when something like this delicate is going on. So angels make sure that they create the conditions in which that doesn't happen. So then after they're protecting us from evil spirits, there's this mind meld that kind of takes place. This is from Heaven and Hell 449. The angels who were sitting behind my head were silent, simply sharing their thoughts with mine. When these are accepted, meaning the thoughts are accepted by the deceased, the angels know that the person's spirit is ready to be led out of the body. They accomplish this sharing of thoughts by looking into my face. This is actually how thoughts are shared in heaven.
Wow, that's wild, because I think about people on this end. You've got hospice nurses or whoever it is, and they're doing various things, and they think, okay, here's where we are in the process. Here, okay, I expect it's only about half an hour now. All that,
Yep.
Here are angels on the other side who are looking at you in the same way, and it's such a strange detail, but they're looking at your face, and they're projecting a kind of thought. And by the way, it's worth saying that we're so used to movies and shows and everything now where people communicate telepathically, or you see aliens and they're, they can speak with their minds or whatever. Thank you. Was that a good imitation there?
Amazing technology.
But that idea wasn't around. Like, who communicated telepathically? What are you talking about? That's not in ancient literature. That wasn't a thing. And
so for
Swedenborg writing about these angels who are just, they're communicating, but it's wordlessly. The idea of wordless communication was not a thing, as far as I know, from that time period. And so this is kind of an amazing detail to think of that being, they're sitting there beaming that in. And when your face, when you receive it, when they can see that their thought is showing up in your face, oh, he's ready.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
We're there. Okay. Made a connection. Okay, we got the connection. We're hooked up. Okay, we're hooked up.
So, Harry Potter. Popular or not popular? Harry Potter, the book series.
I would say popular.
Like the biggest thing that's happened in entertainment in the last 50 years.
Massive.
We're close.
Yeah.
Really big. I'm reading it to my daughter right now. So I'm thinking of Harry Potter. And part of me, whenever I'm reading it, is like, how did this take the world by storm so much? And I think part of why it did is, so in Harry Potter, if you're not familiar, there's like magic. There's witches and wizards, and there's this whole, turns out around the world that you and I see, there's also wizards and witches, and they have this whole magic world that we don't know what's going on.
That's right. So, and they have their own school and their whole, they're learning how to do that and all that.
So J.K. Rowling, who made up Harry Potter, she had to think of, well, like, how does magic work? You know, because you have to create this whole, like, what are the rules of magic? What
are the rules?
And I think that part of what people find appealing about the stories is there's this world where there's magic, and you have like a wand, and you can like cast a spell, and there are charms and things, but there's rules to it all. It's not just, well, we just do magic and it happens. It's like you have to say a certain incantation. If you don't get that right, it doesn't work. In order for this charm to work, this ingredient has to be put just right into the...
And people can get better at it. Like you practice and you get better at it.
And there's certain things that can't... If you see something happening, there's only a few explanations for how that could be done with magic. Like, there's rules to it. Here, you have angels. You'd think angels they're just angels. They just angel everything. No, here there's rules to how it works. Just like here, there's like magnetism and like gravity and the weak and strong nuclear force. There's rules to how things work. It's the same thing there, because they don't just know you're dead because they're just angels and they just know.
Yeah.
They have to do a test. It's like a little like strep test or something. In the good sense, which is, I need to look at you, and when I can tell my thoughts are being accepted by you, that's when I know.
That's when I know.
And same thing with, how do I even share my thoughts with you? I have to look at your face. That there are rules, which again speaks to the same creator who made this world, which is like, if I start talking over here, you can't really hear me because I'm not facing this microphone.
Yeah.
There's just rules to how things work.
You can wish it worked, but wishing doesn't make it so. There's a technology to it.